Okay, so you know how much we all love great design when
Absolutely.
something just works visually.
Yeah.
But when you're not a designer yourself,
Yeah.
that process can seem kind of
Yeah.
mysterious. So today, we're really excited to pull back the curtain a little bit on Hop's design.
Yeah, they're a really cool studio.
Yeah, they've got this really fresh take on design, and I love their motto. It's just so catchy. All you need is hops. But you know us, we got to dig
Of
deeper.
course, of course.
Is it really more than just a tagline?
Well, what I find really interesting about hops is the founder, Dimitris Priftis. Apparently, he's been fascinated by visual storytelling since he was a kid, like really captivated by the way that good design can make complex ideas seem so simple. And, you know, in our world right now, there's so much information coming at us all the time. That's a real superpower to have, to be able to cut through all that.
It's like those aha moments, right? When
Right.
you finally understand something that's been tripping you up,
Exactly.
and it's all thanks to a well-designed infographic or something.
Yeah, and that's what seems to be like baked into the DNA at Hop's design. It's not just about making things look pretty, it's about making those designs really work hard to get the meaning across.
Right.
Like they're solving communication problems visually, which I think is so cool. It's
Yeah.
really powerful.
And they have this whole philosophy about creating meaningful connections. What does that even mean in the design world, though?
That's a great question.
It sounds nice and everything, but
It does, it does.
is it just, a marketing term?
Well, it's definitely more than that.
Okay.
Think about it this way. A website can be absolutely gorgeous to look at, but if you can't actually find the information that you need,
Yeah.
does it really even matter?
Right.
So Hops goes beyond just the surface level. They want to create designs that really connect with the audience on a deeper level.
So it's about understanding who that target audience is, what message the design is actually trying to get across,
Yeah,
and then finding that way to bridge that gap authentically.
precisely. Like take their work with that sustainable coffee brand. What was it called? Bean There.
Okay. Yeah.
Their website, it's not just about showing you like pretty pictures of coffee cups.
Right.
They're telling a story. They use all these earthy tones and natural textures to give you this sense of ethical sourcing and environmental consciousness.
Okay.
Even the font feels really handcrafted and personal.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a great example of what they mean by meaningful connection. Like every single element of that design is carefully chosen to align with that brand's story and the values of their audience.
Okay, yeah, that example makes it so much clearer. It's like every single little thing has a purpose. It's
Yeah.
not just there to look nice.
Yeah.
It's all telling this cohesive story. But how do they put that into practice? What's their process like?
Well, I think one thing that really makes Hops stand out is how collaborative they are. They don't just take orders from clients, it's more like a partnership.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because you hear these horror stories sometimes, right? About designers who are so married to their vision that they don't listen to what the client wants.
Oh, totally.
How do they avoid that?
From what I've read, they have a very open process, lots of back and forth. Like they start by really getting to know the client, their goals, brand identity, target audience.
They do their homework.
Yeah, and they ask a ton of questions. They really encourage that constant feedback throughout the whole design process.
So it's not just, here's the design, take it or leave it.
No, no, no.
There's that back and forth, refining it based on the collaboration.
Yeah. They use mood boards and sketches and even prototypes to get the client's input really early on in the process.
Okay.
So it's much more like you're building a house together, It's not like they just hand over the keys and say, here's your finished product, hope you like it.
Yeah, yeah. No more design surprises.
Yeah, okay.
So that makes a lot of sense. And I bet that approach leads to much happier clients in the end,
Mm-hmm.
and probably more efficient process overall.
Absolutely. And that kind of ties into another thing I think is super interesting about Hop's design.
Okay.
It's this really fascinating balance they strike between giving their designers creative freedom, but then also having this real focus on technical precision.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Mm,
Because design is all about creativity, right?
right.
But then at the same time, it has to actually work. Especially in the digital world, there's a lot of tech stuff involved.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes those two things can feel like they're at odds.
Totally.
But it seems like Hops, they don't see it that way at all. They actually view that technical expertise as like a springboard for even more creativity.
Mm.
Like, they really understand user experience, coding languages, all those accessibility standards, like all that behind the scenes stuff that most people don't even think about.
Right, but it's so important.
It is, because it's what makes the design actually functional, right?
It's like a musician who knows their scales and chords inside and out, so then they can really improvise and make the music their own.
Such a good analogy.
So that technical stuff provides this framework, but then there's all this room for creative expression within that.
Yes, exactly. And, just like a good musician, Hops isn't content with playing the same old tunes, you know what I mean?
Right, right.
Constantly trying new things, pushing those boundaries, experimenting with new technologies, new aesthetics. They're not afraid to be really innovative.
Yeah, and that's so key because things change so quickly in the design world. I mean, trends are constantly evolving.
All the time, yeah.
New tech is coming out all the time. Something that felt cutting edge like a year ago can feel really stale and outdated now.
Exactly. If you're not evolving, you're basically already falling behind.
Right.
And it's really clear that Hops gets that. Like, they're not just following the trends, they're really trying to stay ahead of the curve and actually define what's next.
So it's not just about, we'll design your website, no problem.
Right.
It's more like, we're going to give you this competitive edge through really good design.
Exactly. That's smart.
That's really smart.
And it goes back to something that Dimitris talks about a lot, which is this idea that businesses really need to invest in strong visuals.
Yeah, because we're living in such a visual world now, especially online. Like that visual identity, that's the first impression.
Oh, it totally is. I mean, think about it. You land on a website, and within, milliseconds, you've already decided whether you like it or not.
Oh, yeah.
And that's all based on the design,
Yeah, yeah.
Is it modern? Does it feel trustworthy? Does it resonate with me personally? And those judgments, even though they happen so fast, they can really make or break a brand.
So Hops isn't just designing logos and websites then. They're shaping people's perceptions.
That's right.
They're influencing how people feel.
They are, and that's pretty powerful when you think about it.
It is powerful, and I bet that puts a lot of pressure on designers, right?
It does. It's a big responsibility to take on, to try to translate a brand's values and their hopes and dreams into something visual. But it seems like Hops Design is totally up for that challenge.
Yeah, they seem really passionate about helping their clients find that unique visual voice.
Yeah, and that's what makes them different. They're not just churning out cookie cutter designs. They want to create something strategic and meaningful for each client.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about the origin story, their design philosophy, their collaborative process, their commitment to both creativity and that technical side of things, and this real drive to always be innovating.
They do a lot.
But for our listener, what would you say is the key takeaway here? Why should they care about Hops Design and this approach?
It seems like they're really raising the bar for what good design can be, Like, it's not just about making things look pretty. They're thinking about it strategically.
It's much bigger than that. Yeah, how can design help tell the brand story? How can it connect to their audience, helps them stand out, actually help their business?
And you know what? A lot of people don't think about it that way.
Right.
But Hops is treating design as a business tool.
Yeah.
Not just something you tack on at the end.
Right, like an afterthought. Oh, and then we need a logo.
Exactly.
And for anyone listening, that's a really important thing to remember. Because whether you're running your own business or working on some passion project on the side,
yeah,
even if it's just thinking about your own personal brand,
totally,
these ideas, they still apply.
They do.
It's about recognizing that the design choices that you're making, they actually make an impact. The colors you choose, the font you use, the whole layout of your website, they all say something, even if you don't realize it.
Absolutely. And if you're more intentional about those choices,
Yeah.
you can actually shape how people see you, how they see your work.
It's almost like design is its own language, right?
Totally.
And the more fluent you are in that language, the better you're going to be at communicating your message.
100%.
But where do you even begin with all this?
Well, Dimitris talks a lot about how businesses really need to invest in strong visuals, right?
Yeah.
So a good place to start is to just take a look at your branding, wherever you're at right now, and ask yourself, does this actually represent me? Does this represent my values, my goals?
Yeah, it's like holding up a mirror to your brand.
Yes.
And being honest about what you see.
Yeah, and if the answer's no,
Right?
it might be time to rethink some of those choices that you've made.
It doesn't have to be a total, top to bottom redesign either.
Oh, for sure not. Sometimes the smallest tweaks can make such a huge difference.
Totally. Like maybe you just need to freshen up the colors a bit, or
Uh,
choose a font that feels a little more modern, or add some really high-quality photos to your website.
exactly.
Just be thoughtful about it.
Right.
Make sure each decision is actually doing something for you, working towards the outcome that you want.
Exactly. It's all connected.
Okay, so think about it this way. If your brand was a person, what would their personality be like, just based on the visuals?
Ooh, that's good.
And if the answer you come up with doesn't really match what your brand is all about, well,
Time for a refresh.
yeah, maybe time to make some changes.
I love that.
This was so eye-opening, honestly.
Way.
Hops Design, they're definitely doing something special.
They're one to watch, for sure.
And for everyone listening, hopefully this sparks some ideas for you. Maybe a little inspiration for your own branding journey. Because design is powerful.
Oh, yeah.
If you use it in a thoughtful way, it can help you tell your story, connect with the right people, really achieve your goals.
It can be transformative.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those creative sparks flying.